Nicky, Champ goes for the Paddy Power Stayers hurdle. Of all the horses I've seen while with you, his reaction to cheek pieces caught my eye.
Well, you might be right. I hope you are. I don't know. We've had it in our mind for some time. They might help him a little bit. He certainly jumped very, very well this morning. He's in good form. I mean, he's pretty solid. He was bang there on New Year's Day in the staying hurdle there. And, you know, he's been knocking on the door. You'd think that the Stayers does look relatively wide open at the moment. They finished in a heap on trials day, so, and he wasn't beaten more than 3 or 4 lengths. So, you know, if they help him, which I think they will, just make him slightly easier to hold his posse perhaps through the race. He's a lovely horse. I mean, he's been a great friend. He's been terrific over the years.
When you consider his owner companion, Sada Burley, won it at a ripe old age. Like these old boys, you can't ignore in this race because there's no standout champion, is there?
Yeah, that's it. I think the door's open. It's probably open for a younger model, but you never know.
So summing up with him, in some ways he'd be a little bit of a surprise winner, but he wouldn't be in any way an impossible winner.
Well, he's certainly not there to make up numbers or anything like that. No, I think he's, you know, he goes in with a nice cut in the ground, he travels. He will in these cheek pieces anyway, which will put him in the race.
Let's talk First Street and Luccia. Now, originally, both of those were being considered for the champion hurdle. I think there's a little bit of a change of plan now.
Well, I think, you know, this is nothing to do with Constitution Hill. Luccia at the moment, I know Paul Sandy is very keen to have a crack at it. It's a little bit ambitious if you consider a handicap mark compared to some of the other protagonists. But again, it depends how the race pans out at the end of the day. But she is going to run. She's won really good prize at Ascot already this year. So, you know, she's fully entitled to have a crack at it. And she's a very high-class mare. She's in good form. She's been a bit misleading in a funny way. She won a bumper in bottomless ground. And I think we were misled by that a little bit, thinking she had to have it. We've actually now decided she wants good ground. So, you know, it'll help her if it isn't too wet, because that's why we didn't run her in the Betfair hurdle.
Now, the handicapper isn't often kind, but he might have been kind to you with First Street.
Yeah, I don't know if he's been kind. Well, he has. I thought he was very unkind in the first place. When he ran in the Cleve, no, he didn't. He ran in the Unibet hurdle. And, you know, and in the Christmas hurdle, I mean, we've been chasing prize money rather than actually thinking we were going to win. He was third to Constitution, the Christmas hurdle. He was third in the Unibet. And for excellent prize money, yes, but he can't quite win that. I suspect he's not a grade 1 horse, but he's not far off it, and that's what the handicapper would probably tell us. He did pop him up a bit, but we had a chat, and he's just let us down back to where we were. If you go back to his old handicap form, and this is an extraordinary one, I mean, it was 2 years ago that he ran in the county hurdle, and he was giving weight and got a length or 2 length beating by Stateman. Well, that's pretty solid form. I don't think anybody knew much about Stateman when he came over for the county. How in the world he got into the county off that sort of weight, I have absolutely no idea. But of course, poor old First Street's paid for it ever since. And he's found life difficult, but he's run some fantastic races. And I'm now very, very keen that he goes up in trip. I think he's showing all the signs of that he needs 2.5 these days. And so I would like to go Coral.
Jeriko Du Reponet goes in the Sky Bet Supreme, unbeaten. He didn't impress absolutely everyone at Doncaster. He hung a bit left in the closing stages, but for much of that race he travelled like a machine, and the form has had a boost through lump sum at Kempton. He looks physically a proper tool.
Yeah, he's the most lovely, lovely horse. You won't see better individuals, to be honest with you, and a very talented one, there's no doubt. He had 2 very easy races to start with. They amounted to nothing except that he could doodle around Newbury on the bridle and beat some. I think the second time certainly it wasn't. They weren't bad horses at all, but he was vastly superior to them. Then we went to Doncaster. We changed the plan a bit there because it was a removed. The race had originally come from Haydock, and it was a grade 2. I thought it would be a nice stepping stone, as it turned out. And it was a very messy race. They crawled for a mile and finished up with a 4 furlong dash. In the slow mile, he didn't jump at all. He just wasn't going fast enough to suit him. You've seen him at school this morning. He can be electric.
Yeah.
And when they came up the straight and they were really, the foots were down, he jumped really well. It was a dash. That wasn't going to suit him doing that. I mean, he's a proper jumper. And I think, in that sort of mad dash, he did very well to come out in front. But as you rightly say, the good thing about it, okay, it didn't get everybody carried away. Mark Walsh was very happy with him. It was a workmanlike display. I was quite pleased he got into a bit of a fight, because there's no doubt whatever happens, there's going to be a fight at Cheltenham. And he'll want to know what it's all about. And what we found that day is he did learn from the last how to put his head down and get out of trouble. But then the second and third have both come out and run in the Dovecote at Kempton last Saturday. They finished first and second again, looked impressive, came right away. That's a grade 2, so that form should be rock solid, and that's given the Doncaster race a very solid look now. And look, it depends what, we're all waiting to see what Willie's going to turn up with. In the Willie Mullins Racing Festival, he sort of brought along Ronnie's horse, but it depends whether they're going to go 2 or 2.5, and all the ones he's got. I mean, we've all seen them. I leave him to make that decision, thank goodness. And we've got horses for the 2.5 as well, so we're all gonna clash. But I still hope you've got to stay really well in the Supreme, and that he will do. We never put him in the 2.5, but he'll stay, and that'll be. And he can quicken a bit. They've got good weapons.
Jonbon has long been a leading contender for the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase. What you see of Jonbon at home, Nicky, is he an absolute top-notcher? Because I think if you go through his form, there are questionable wins in there, even then the grade 1s. Is he an absolute top-notcher in your mind?
But it's interesting because, several times we've gone back and thought, well, we've got to go up to 2.5. And the Ryanair would be the obvious place to do that. And yet, each time we're just about to do that, he comes back with a cracking performance over 2. We did that as a novice. We were going to go for the 2.5 mile novice chase at Aintree. And the 2 miler was so much, obviously, easier. We stayed at 2. He won it really well. So we then thought at the back end of that season, well, we'll run him. He came straight from there into the celebration chase at Sandown on the last day. The only horse was missing was the champion chase winner. And we judged against the top older 2 milers, and he hammered them. It was a spectacular performance. And they said, okay, right, we'll stick to 2 miles. I suspect that might have been, well, then he's won everything you can do except the Clarence House. I think that if the Clarence House had been run the previous Saturday, and we were going to have that anticipated clash with El Fabiola, I mean, that was the one race I was looking forward to. And I was pretty confident we'd give El Fabiola a run for his money. It was going to be a fascinating race. I know Nico was well keen for it. So was I. The horse was really great. Now, most horses can wait a week. It's now next Saturday. With him, it's a funny thing. I think, as everybody knows, he is a horse that can get himself a little bit. We do quite a bit of sweating, or used to. And as the season goes on, he gets better and better on that score. And he settles down a lot. But holding him where he was for the previous Saturday for a week wasn't as easy as it. If it was Constitution Hill, it would be easy. You just say, sorry, old boy, just wait a week, will you? Whereas with him, right, what are we going to do for a week? The clock was well wound. and he needed the run to bring him back off it, and to unwind the clock, so to speak. And just things went against him at Cheltenham. It was unfortunate, and it wasn't. That wasn't going to beat El Fabiello. He couldn't beat what was put in front of him through mistakes, through a lot of things. But I'd have loved the Clarence House to have been in Ascot on the original plan, and it would have been interesting.
I want to ask you two more questions about him. The first one, don't get angry with me. When you say you were upset that Clarence House didn't take place at Ascot, there'll be people watching this saying, don't be silly, Nicky, you were delighted the clash was off. No way you wanted to really take on El Fabiolo. You don't take on Mullins, you run scared. What would you say to those people? Because there are people who think that. What would you say to them?
They could think that, but it's a silly way to think, because we were going to be at Ascot. I could say we genuinely, I thought that would have been a cracker. And I don't say, they reran it the next week, but it was perfectly obvious that Willie wasn't going to come over. Again, he could just wait a week and wait for his own racing festival, which was pure common sense. Why would he want to travel? And then he would have to travel twice. So he was hardly likely to travel twice and then go to Dublin. So, the same as I'm saying, I don't want to go to Dublin, because we don't want to travel a month before Cheltenham. Simple as that.
And finally, a lot of people feel that he needs McCoy-esque ride, almost like an Edredon Blur type, aggressive, chucked into every fence. Well, Edwardstone might be doing that for a start in the Champion Chase. Is that what you believe that Jonbon needs, or is he a horse to sit on?
Purposes, yes. Right. I think you can ride him that way, and I think that we want to. We've minded him a little bit earlier in the year that we didn't need to and we didn't have to. But that is, I know that's what Nico's been itching to just throw him at it. Now, whether he needs another half a mile to do it, I don't know. But, Edwardstone I thought was very impressive at Newbury. So, he might be going to set us a proper gallop anyway. So, which I would imagine, I don't say it's in our favour, but it certainly won't hinder.
Shanagh Bob goes in the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. I was lucky enough to be reporting for Sky Sports at Plumpton when he won. It was what he did from after the last hurdle to the line that day that impressed me. Jockey eased down, the horse took off, and I thought, hi, up and then he hadn't done an awful lot, and I thought, no, there's something in this horse. He's improved since then. He looks very exciting. If he won the 3-mile novice chase next year, you wouldn't be surprised. He looks excited.
I think that'll probably be his way. It's funny that he's got Bob in his name, because there's just a little bit of old Bobsworth in this horse. Very laid back, nothing bothers him, and as you've gone on, he's just got better and better and better. His strength, his stamina. This time, however many years ago it was with Bobsworth, Henderson had one of his sort of middle-of-the-night crises and decided that we were going to go for the 2.5, which was a Neptune probably then. And I suddenly realised, heck, this horse must go to 3. Rang up poor old Kimbo, who managed the syndicate, and said that we've got to go up to 3. Well, they'd all backed him for the 2.5, but they were great. I said, okay, if that's what you want to do, yeah, we've got to go do. And of course it was right, and forevermore, that was the horse that would come up that hill for you like an absolute Trojan, 3 years running. And I don't say this horse got 1,000,000 miles to go before he's got a Bobsworth in him. But his attitude is good, his jumping is solid, his whole demeanour. I think it'll be another year before you see a really high-class horse. But as you say, over fences next year, he could be a great project.
Shishkin. So he should be a King George winner. He was okay in the Denman. I don't think he absolutely set the world alight in the Denman at Newbury, but he showed what he can do. He's a horse who doesn't like other horses passing him, does he? That's the thing. You kind of feel if a horse comes to his tail, he finds more.
I think and hope so. He'd had a slightly unfortunate season. One was his fault and one wasn't. But otherwise, he's done nothing wrong. And certainly since we've upped him in trip, And we've gone the full 3 miles rather than the 2.5 last year when he won at Ascot. And don't forget, he was a very, very good 2-miler, which probably led us up the garden path a little bit, because there's no doubt what he has got is an abundance of stamina. And he really does stay. And
Hold on. An abundance of stamina or an abundance of class?
well, I think that's right. He's got speed and stamina, so you can do both. And sometimes, and as you say at Newbury, there was a moment when he didn't look as if he was travelling as well as, let's say, a 2-miler should have been travelling at that stage of the game. But as soon as he put his head down and got on with it, and he wasn't going away. And in all his races, he's finished very strong. In all the races he started in, anyway. There is obviously that one blip, but we forget about that. I don't think, with any luck, that'll repeat itself, but you could never be certain. You can't be. But I think it's out of the vocabulary at the moment. He stays, he's in good shape. I'm not saying it's wide open, it's not. Galopin's, probably got a grip on this, but there's room for, I'm going to say young pretenders. He's not exactly a spring chicken, but he's in good form, and as you rightly say, he's got a bit of class, and he stays. Let's hope.
Yeah. Is he more long run or is he more Bobsworth? Or is he just Shishkin?
I think he's probably just Shishkin, actually, with the sort of kink of a naughty boy in him. He's got no naughtiness in him. Just he can be, at the beginning of the season, he can be a bit of a character. And in fact, that's why at the beginning of this season, we sent him down to Zara Tyndall, and she did a month of dressage with him. And I think they both enjoyed it, actually. She did a great job. The horse enjoyed himself, and he missed a period that he's always awkward here. So it seemed a good project at the time, and something I'd do again if time comes.
And there'll be no headgear in the Gold Cup, will there?
No, I mean, we've considered it. Obviously we did, because we put some cheek pieces on for Ascot. I honestly don't believe it had anything to do with the reason he didn't start. But for the sake of argument, we're going to leave them off. I thought they would work. But it certainly didn't cause him to stop. But it seems we haven't got a chance to find out from the King George. We didn't put them on there. And then at Newbury. So I think you want to go back to the King George and say that was going to be some fierce run for his first run of the season. That was outstanding. And he'd set sail a long way from home that day. I'm not saying we're suddenly going to take it up at the top of the hill and make a burst for the Arkle, but he'll be there as long as he's at the bottom of the hill.
Away from the big guns, Marie's Rock would have an obvious each-way chance in the mares at a big price. Is there anything lurking? Because most of the other runners are big prices. Is there anything lurking in there, Nicky, that you're thinking in the back of your mind, that's a big price?
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong. There's 2 horses in the 2.5 mile novice hurdle. I would suggest Jingko Blue, who was very, very impressive at Sandown.
Handicap.
In a handicap, yes, but even so, it wasn't a bad handicap.
No.
And he even surprised me a bit with the way he did that. And he's looked a horse that's improving all the time, and so is Lucky Place. And his form is pretty, it's growing all the time. I was trying to get him handicapped at one stage, but he looks like he's better than that. And that run at Cheltenham the other day with Gidley Park.
Yeah. Kept on well.
He kept on well, and he got there really well too. And I just think there's more to come. Those are 2 really nice horses, and they're going to be for next year's novice chasing as well as Shanagh Bobs and Jeriko's and all that. We've no novice chasers this year to really speak about. I mean, some nice horses, but none of them are in this grade at the moment. Whereas I think next year, this lovely bunch of novice hurdlers will all be going chasing, and then I hope next year our real strength is going to be novice chasers. So hopefully we'll have the same conversation in a year's time, talking about the same horses.